Well, first of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here today. My name is Karina Medaglia. I'm ELL Marketing Manager, and I really appreciate your connecting today to this great webinar we will have with Luciana Fernandez. Okay, first of all, I would like to introduce Luciana to all of you. Oh, we have people from Kyrgyzstan as well. Wow. Okay. Well, the webinar for today will be on engaging young learners with authentic resources and motivation techniques. And I will tell you a bit more about Luciana, okay? Luciana Fernandez is a graduate teacher of English and a teacher educator who has 30 years experience in the field of education. She has specialized in methodology, teaching practice, early years education, literacy and critical thinking. She holds a diploma in educational research from the University of Cambridge Faculty of Education. She has two postgraduate certifications in teaching for comprehension and thinking cultures from Fundaciones Colombia. Luciana has presented at numerous congresses and conventions, both nationally and internationally, and was awarded an IATEFL scholarship in 2016. She's a senior academic consultant for Pearson Languages, and at present, she's an educational advisor and several bilingual schools locally and internationally. She has been both a teacher and head teacher at several institutions in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and has been a teacher trainee at ESARP, English Speaking Scholastic Association of the River Plate, for the past 20 years. Okay, I guess we are ready to start, Lu.
Yes, we are. Hello, everybody, wherever you are in this world. Let me begin by saying a huge thank you to Everybody Loves Languages for inviting me one more time to deliver a webinar. I'm delighted. And the second big thank you is to you all for making some time in your busy days to listen to me talking about engaging young learners with authentic resources and motivation techniques. I hope you make the most of this webinar and that you are absolutely ready to begin. So I would like to get started by sharing with you all our agenda for today, which is quite ambitious. Today, we're going to be talking about high quality teaching and learning in the young learners classroom. We're also going to be talking about the use of authentic materials with young learners. And of course, we are going to dive into motivation techniques with young learners. So this webinar today is going to be clearly divided into 3 moments. So let's begin with the first one I have promised, about high quality teaching and learning in the young learners classroom. Why is this the first thing I will be addressing today? Because it would be very easy for me to begin by sharing ideas. But if those ideas are not understood deeply, if those ideas are not seen from the perspective of a deep understanding regarding how children learn and what motivates children, then they are just ideas, if you know what I mean. So let's begin by discussing a couple of keywords for young learners teaching. One of the things that we probably know as teachers of young learners is that our classes need to be enjoyable, that the experiences that we bring into the classroom have to be meaningful, that our learners in the young learners classroom need to be supported, and that they fully enjoy social experiences, that everything we bring into the classroom needs to have a purpose, and that our students need to be engaged in practice. But the question is, we probably know all this, but where does that come from? And today, I would like to begin by looking at some huge contributions when it comes to teaching children from Piaget, Vygotsky, and Brunner. Children are active learners and thinkers. Children learn through social interaction. Children learn effectively through scaffolding by adults. So these are 3 big ideas that lie beneath high quality teaching in the young learners classroom. But let's look at the implications of these big ideas. According to Piaget, children learn through making sense of the world. According to Vygotsky, adults mediate the world for children. How? Through playing, stories, questions, ideas, and experiences. And according to Brunner, children learn by using their prior knowledge, by solving problems, and, love this, by going beyond the information given. That is to say, doing something with the information that they have access to. And so all this in the young learner classroom is translated into very concrete actions that we teachers are responsible for. We need to provide students with the possibility to interact with the environment. We need students to be engaged in acting and exploring. We need children engaged in problem solving. And we need to allow our students to construct knowledge as they do. It's also vital that children do things in a social context, because in that way, language is internalized. Very important as well, it is that we create an interest in the task, that we break, as educators, the tasks into smaller steps. And last but not least, it's very important to know that our children will need lots of modeling from us. There is something that I forgot to say, and I don't want to keep going without mentioning it. At the end of the session, we are going to have some time for questions. So if, as I am presenting, you happen to have any doubts or questions, please jot them down for further discussion. And so, what lies beneath high-quality teaching and learning in the young learner's classroom is rooted in all this we have been discussing so far. As teachers, we need to examine activities from the child's point of view and assess whether our students will understand what to do and why they are doing it. This means that as teachers, we need to plan for routines and carefully plan for scaffolding that will help our learners learn effectively. We need to know as teachers that our children need to be helped. And because they are children, because they are young learners, they should not be helped through formal grammar in order to grasp meaning. So we need to think how we're going to do that. Language can grow as the child takes control of language used initially with other children at their same language level and by interacting with adults who are more competent users of the language. And last but not least, the broader and the richer the language experience provided for the children, the more likely they are to learn. And so, having looked at what's the bedrock, I would say, of everything we will be discussing today, one of the key words and something that would be salient in the ideas presented by Piaget, Brunner, and Vygotsky is interaction. And as teachers, we need to know that promoting interaction in our language classes is critical. We need to know there are 3 types of interaction that we have to promote in the classroom. Student with the content and the materials that we bring into the lesson, interaction between the student and the teacher, as I said before, a less and a more competent user of the language, and interaction among students. So we need to make sure that we provide and carefully plan for these 3 types of interaction. But at the same time, there are some research fundamentals regarding interaction that we need to pay attention to. Something which is mandatory is that as teachers, we pre-teach the language that the child will need to deal with the task that we have planned for that lesson. We must also provide support. How do we provide support? Well, one way of providing support is by pre-teaching the task language, but another very important way in which we can provide support is by modeling the task. Another research fundamental is giving children preparation time to participate in the task. We need to vary interaction, activities which are to be carried out in pairs, in small groups, in bigger groups, as a whole class, repeating tasks, until students feel at ease, and probably a very important, if not the most important research fundamental is that we have to provide a reason to interact. So one of the most demotivating things for children, and I would say for students of all ages, is not feeling safe or not feeling that you've got what it takes to participate in a task, no matter how interesting the task might be. And so the pre-teaching of the task language and the support provided by the teacher is mandatory when it comes to motivation. So one way in which we are fully responsible for scaffolding and motivating our learners to participate in the activities we bring into the classroom is by providing them with sentence stems and sentence frames. Not taking anything for granted, I brought this Venn diagram just to show you where these two sentence stems and frames clash and how they are different. They happen to be two ways in which we teachers can support students' use of academic language, how we can motivate students to actively participate in an activity that we bring into the language classroom. Sentence stems are like a cliffhanger, It's for photosynthesis plants, and then the student goes on, usually also known as sentence starters. I see, or my opinion is, it's like a cliffhanger, if you know. It's like pushing them to talk, whereas sentence frames are like a fill in the blank, all right? So for photosynthesis, plants require and. So if you pay attention, the sentence frame supports a little bit more than the sentence stem or starter. This is, I just wanted to share with all of you a couple of examples. Let's imagine that you've been working on a unit with your students on the grasslands. So a way in which you can support your students is by having at hand the words that they need to express themselves, as well as sentence frames, all right? Or examples here, sentence frames and starters. My favorite food is because I like to eat. And so other examples you've got in the slides. The idea is that our students are supported in terms of language to be able to feel more secure to participate in the task. As I said before, and this has been heavily researched, one of the most demotivating things is I want to participate, I do have something to say, I do have a contribution to make, but I don't have the language for it. So this is how we as educators pay a lot of attention to the interaction research fundamentals we were discussing before. So we have already talked about Piaget, Vygotsky, Brunner's big ideas and how those big ideas have very important implications for the classroom And everything we're going to be exploring today is rooted, of course, in these big ideas and implications. Let us move now on to another keyword in the title of today's webinar, which has to do with authentic materials. So this is the moment in the presentation in which we will be discussing the use of authentic materials with young learners. Please remember to jot down any question or comments that you may have so that we can go over them at the end of the session today. So first things first, let's clarify what we mean by authentic materials. One description of authentic material states that the purpose of authentic materials is to communicate meaning and information. And the main characteristic is that they are produced for real communication rather than to teach language. Okay, this is a definition by Thomas, 2014. So put this in other words, we are referring to materials that haven't been created for the language classroom, but which the teacher can bring into the language classroom because of the characteristic that is mentioned in Thomas's definition of having real language. It's real material, having created for a real purpose. There are real people involved, real language being used, in opposition probably to the language that has been prefabricated, or narrowed down for the classroom. Examples of authentic materials are TV shows, news segments, documentaries, movie clips, trailers, online videos, commercials, radio broadcasts, songs, podcasts, photographs, artwork, signs, postcards, maps, advertisements, magazines, letters, emails, news articles, brochures, websites, blogs, social media posts, recipes, food labels, bus and train schedules, menus, price tags, and product descriptions. So practically anything that comes from the real world can be brought into the classroom because of the characteristic of being real. Needless to say, when talking about young learners, there are authentic materials such as realia. Again, if you are not familiar with this term, we are talking about bringing real objects, real food, okay? The real thing. It's not on a flashcard, it's not a picture, it's not on a course book page, it's the tangible, real thing. And obviously, we are also talking about games brought into the classroom and storybooks. And today I'm going to be sharing some nice tried and tested ideas on how you can make the most of, for example, storybooks and realia. Now, when it comes to authentic materials, there is a very important part on behalf of teachers, which is selecting, what is it that I'm going to bring into the classroom? And the criteria for selecting authentic materials is really important. There are a couple of questions that you have to ask yourselves as teachers before you decide to use any authentic material. And the questions are, what concept, skill, or language structure am I practicing with my students at this point in this lesson? How do I want my students to be able to use language? And how will this particular resource help them learn or practice that I intend them to practice? That is to say, why am I bringing this object into the classroom? Why have I decided that it is a good idea at this particular moment of the lesson? And how is that going to end up or result in language output from my students, which is the ultimate goal always? What is the language proficiency level of my students? What support will they need to access the content of the materials? This is probably referring to bringing movies or bringing a video or bringing a trailer or bringing a blog or a newspaper article. This question is very important and takes us back to what we were mentioning before with reference to interaction research fundamentals. That is to say, how are you going to support your learners with the language they need to access those materials? Because remember that the main characteristic of authentic materials is that they haven't been created for the classroom. So we don't want frustrated children in the classroom. We want them to enjoy. We want them to be motivated. And no matter how motivating that movie or that blog or that video might be, if it is way too beyond our students' level of competence, it's going to end up in frustration, and we don't want that. The third very important question is, what topics are interesting to my students? What do they like? What is it that they cannot stop talking about? Because if as a teacher, I am fully aware of their interests, I might use them, all right? And language will always be there. And what's more motivating than having in the class something that I am passionate about, something that I am curious about, something that I am interested in? And last but not least, do my students interact with English in their everyday lives? If so, in what contexts or settings do they use English? And if not, what types of materials can I incorporate into instruction to motivate them to use English outside the classroom too? So my strong suggestion is that whenever you are considering authentic materials, you truly engage yourselves in reflecting upon these questions. And so we've been talking about high quality teaching and learning with young learners, some very important ideas, some very important implications for the classroom. We have looked at what authentic materials are and why they matter, and also the criteria for selecting them wisely. And now we have moved on to, I would say, probably the most enjoyable part, in which we're going to be sharing motivation techniques. There is something that I would like to say about these motivation techniques. First thing I want to say is that everything I will be sharing with you today, as I anticipated before, has been tried and tested. I'm a colleague of yours. I've tried this myself. I've seen it in action. It has worked for me. And of course, as I always tell everybody, these are all ideas to adopt and adapt to your own teaching context. So everybody, let's dive into motivation techniques. So why is it that today I got started with Bruna, Piaget, the implications for the classroom? Why did I devote some time of the webinar to that? Because that is so related to another keyword, a big keyword of today's title of the webinar, which is motivation. Motivation techniques into the classroom will be techniques that we teachers use to promote interaction. As we said before, the three types of interaction: interaction between the student and the teacher, the student with the materials and resources that I bring into my class, and the interaction among students. Motivation is going to be a responsibility of the teacher, in the sense that our students are learning a language, but we don't want language learners, we want language users. And so if we want language users, our responsibility is to get our students to do things with the language they are learning. Motivation is going to appear in my lessons as our students can solve problems, problems of all kinds, but also problems related to language. Like, I don't know how to say this, or I don't remember this word, even solving communication problems. Remember, we've been talking about problem solving as a big principle when teaching young learners. So this is how our students will feel motivated when they are challenged, when they are given the chance to solve problems. Now, there is nothing more demotivating, again, than having the feeling that you are learning, you will not be able to use unless you are in the classroom. So we have the huge responsibility of giving our learners the possibility to use language in real life situations. We need to bring life into the classroom so that students say, hey, this that I am learning is not only useful for the classroom, but I will be able to use beyond the classroom walls. And of course, motivation is going to be the star of our classes if we give students the possibility to work with authentic materials. And so I would like to share with you, as I've been saying, a lot of ideas that I've tried, tested myself, and that are really motivating in the young learners classroom. Let me repeat for the third time that if, as I am presenting, you have a doubt, there is something you didn't understand, or you've all of a sudden made a connection with something, everything is going to be welcome to be discussed at the end of today's webinar. So let's get started with motivating young learners through working with photos. Out of all the authentic materials, I had to make my own choices, because authentic materials, as we have seen, are very many. And it was impossible for me to bring ideas with all the very many possibilities of authentic materials that you can work with in the class. So I've chosen my favorite, and I hope you enjoy the ideas I brought for you. Now, there's nothing new under the sun. We language teachers have always worked with photos. Photos and pictures have always been part of our classes. The thing is, and as you might have heard at the very beginning of this presentation, I've been an educator for 30 years. And I've been a teacher myself, and I've been a coordinator and a school head, and I'm a teacher trainer, and I'm an advisor. I love being surrounded by teachers, and I love seeing teachers in action, and I love teaching myself. And there's a confession to be made. Mostly what we do with photos is to get students to describe them. And the truth is that if we stop to think about it just for a little while, I don't know if that counts as very motivating for children. Necessary it is, and I agree. Our students need to be able to look at a picture and describe it. But I would like to move from the, okay, I'm okay with this activity, to activities that will be more motivating with photos and which will truly engage our students in a set of other skills beyond language skills. The first thing that I would like to suggest as an idea is the question wheel. The question wheel is, apart from telling what is it that you can see in the photo, apart from describing it, why not inviting the children to ask questions about what they are looking at? So the question wheel, all right, is, as a matter of fact, the question wheel can be used with practically anything. But speaking about photos, the idea is that the children will spin the wheel and they will ask a who, why, how, where, what, when, or what if, or can question, all right? So rather than describing, or probably why not, after describing, we can engage the children into asking questions about the photo. One of the things that I love about this activity is that questions, and lots of questions, pop up, but children begin to also make attempts at answering them. And as they answer these questions, they are giving their opinion and they are making inferences. So the language functions multiply from just describing to doing other things with language, such as giving an opinion, expressing an idea, making an inference. So I strongly suggest the question wheel. Now, you can also, speaking about asking questions about pictures, work with graphic organizers like the ones I'm sharing on the screen right now, asking who, what, when, where questions. Something that I also love doing is giving the whole class the same picture and then splitting the class into groups. And the groups can get together and I give them a chart like the first one you've got in the slide. And the group negotiates and they come up with a who, what, when, where question. And then when I say so, they swap, their questions with other groups, and the other groups make an attempt at answering these questions. Or you can also have the 5Ws charts, who, what, when, where, why, all right? This is how students move just making affirmative or negative statements into the habit of questioning what they are looking at, which is part of visual literacy development and is so important. Now, one of my favorite thinking routines to use with photos is the routine known as I see, I think, I wonder. This is, again, an invitation for our learners to involve themselves into deep thinking. Tell me what you see, and probably we are all looking at the same photo, but do we all think the same about what we are looking at? Probably not. And of course, what do we wonder? So once again, let me insist on how we multiply the opportunities for using other functions of language beyond describing. Remember sentence frames, and sentence starters to support this routine, okay? And here you also have an example of what this looks like in the classroom with everybody in the classroom's contributions. Like, what do you see? What do you think? And what do you wonder? Now, one thing I do in the classroom with young learners, and it works all the time, is I have adapted the routine I see, I think, I wonder. And you can go into I see, I think, I feel for the language of emotions. Or I see, I think, I remember, if you want, for example, your students to practice the simple past and refer to a past experience. Or I see, I think, I relate, I compare. So you can always invite your students to go beyond the I can see, there is, there are, which you will agree with me is not as motivating as having the possibility to express my own ideas, opinions, inferences, memories triggered by that photo. I hope you're enjoying these ideas. Now, there's an activity which is very motivating, and I've seen it in action. And this is the kind of activity which young learners really want to play over and over again, which is called Describe It. So usually I get students in pairs, and one of the kids is blindfolded or simply giving his or her back to the picture. The other student has a photo. The more real the photo, the better, okay? So the idea is, so probably you can even ask young learners to bring a photo of their own. So instead of saying to the blindfolded partner, what I am describing, I'm going to put myself, in the shoes of somebody being there at the place where I am, the place I am describing, and I have to tell you how that smells, or how that feels, or how that looks, or how that tastes, and how that sounds. You can be describing an item in particular, or why not a place. So maybe I'm in the countryside, and what do I smell? All right. How does it feel there where I am? How does it look? And am I tasting anything? Can I hear anything? So see the language possibilities of this activity. And of course, the child that is blindfolded engages into very active listening, and of course needs to guess what's the place being described. A favorite of mine, and this works with young learners, and it works with older students, and it even works with adults. It's called Guess the Connection. The idea of this activity is that you bring 4 photos that have a connection that students have to discover. All right. So this is like an activity that can be broken into smaller tasks. So first, students can describe one picture, and then the other, then the other, and then the other, and then come up with what's the connection. Something that I also like to do is to split the class into groups, and I give each group, one of the photos. Everybody describes the photos, then we place them together and we say, what is it that they have in common? All right. And discovering the connection. Something very interesting that happens here is that more than one connection can be found by students. All right. So you are engaging them into critical thinking, comparing, contrasting, discussion in the groups, a lot going on. And another favorite of mine is an activity called Stand Like This. All right. Stand Like This, again, is probably one. You can divide your class into groups, and there is only one student that is holding the photo. And then the rest of the students are the ones who will carefully listen to the instructions provided by the one who is holding the photo, so that they replicate the photo. So stand like this, put your arm here and put your leg here. You have to smile. So it's all about giving the instructions to the rest of the members of the team, so that they end up replicating the photo. Huge hit, believe me. And obviously, another very good thing to do with photos, which results in lots of motivation from learners, is that you can give them, for example, a story in pictures or photos, and that students can work out what's going on. It's a very good idea to provide learners with a graphic organizer of a story map, so that they say, well, these are the characters, this is the conflict, this is the resolution, this is where they are. And also, something that I love doing with children, and I'm always blown away by their creativity, is getting them to imagine what the characters in the photos might be saying or thinking. This, of course, can also be done with a single photo. Okay, you can also do it with works of art. That's also amazing. What would this character be saying to this other character? What would this character be thinking? So, and this is an activity which is very flexible, in the sense that students can do it on their own, in pairs, or in groups. So, what do you say? Are you taking a couple of ideas with you as for how to promote motivation when working with photos? I hope your answer is yes. You will let me know at the very end. But let us now see how you can motivate young learners through working with songs. Again, songs have always been part of the young learners' classroom. We teachers working with young learners have always brought songs into the classroom. Songs of all kinds, the younger the kids, this is probably not the main topic of today, but there are counting songs and nursery rhymes and transition songs and song. We can even there are songs that have been specially created for the language classroom, but we are talking about authentic material. That's why I mentioned nursery rhymes, which are part of the real world. But we teachers have also always brought like pop songs into the classroom, and it is my belief that something we have always done with songs, which again, it's a very good thing to do, is use songs for listening, you know, like fill in the gaps, put the verbs into the correct tense, work with any aspect of language that is present in the song, and that's okay. That really is, and it might be very motivating. Just bringing a song into the classroom is already motivating, but how can we go the extra mile? All right, so I'm going to bring a couple of ideas that I know work and have worked with students. I have had the chance to share in different contexts. So one of the things that I love doing are the following. Choose a song that tells a story. There are plenty of songs that tell stories, all right? And as you do, identify 5 keywords of the story. You give the students the 5 keywords. So for example, here it would be girlfriend, bag, worried, letter, man. And then you give them a story map graphic organizer. So using those 5 words, students in groups have to come up with a story including these 5 words. So I think this is a story about a man that is worried. So they put all the words into a coherent whole, trying to anticipate what the song might be about. Then they listen to the song and then rearrange the 5 keywords in the story map again. You can also do it with 5 pictures instead of words. As you can see, you know, we've got 1 minute there, we've got a postman, we've got an envelope, we've got a bag, and we've got a boy and a girl. So we try to look at the pictures, we try to figure out together in a group what the story might be about. One picture that summarizes the main thing in the story, like the one, you know, the one that you got on top over there, there's a mailbox. Looks like that mailbox hasn't been used for quite some time. And then at the very back, in the background, we can see the postman. Well, these are some of the ideas that I have used with the song, you know, Mr. Postman from the Beatles. All right. So usually I try to pick songs that are old and that the kids might not be familiar with, so that they truly engage in thinking about what the song might be about. Something that I love is how they work together and negotiate, and they come up with a possible story with these 5 pictures or these 5 words. And then there is a motivation for listening to the song because they want to cross-check. All right. And then they can, of course, rearrange and retell the true story in the song. You can also engage students after you've done an activity like this one in a very important thinking skill, such as summarizing. What was the song about? You know, it's paying attention to the content, and this is very helpful when it comes to young learners. Somebody wanted, but so then, all right? Or who was in the story? What was in the story? The why in the story, the when in the story, the where. And then by putting all those answers together, you come up with a summary. The good thing about this idea is that it can be used with a song, it can be used with a video, it can be used with a text. So these are resources that are very flexible and easy to adapt to the use of other authentic resources. Now, other very nice and very motivating ideas with using songs, and remember that motivation comes hand in hand with having the possibility to create, to do as I am learning, to use the language for a real purpose, and everything we discussed today at the beginning. So why not asking students to add verses of their own, being composers? Or something that I love doing is giving students the lyrics of the song with the beginnings, of the verses, and then students fill them in as they want. They work together. They might be working in pairs or in groups, and then they listen to check. Why not engaging or moving from working with a song onto writing? They can paraphrase the song. All right, what is the song about? Okay, or say the same but using different words, which is an excellent and very rich language activity. Cut the song, if it tells a story, mainly in halves, and students have to predict the other half. And why not using songs for art? How motivating is art for students? Like creating picture lyrics, turning the lyrics into pictures. Or why not even dramatizing what happens in the song? And so I've given you now some very nice ideas for you to work with songs. Also, we have looked at, oh my goodness, I forgot what is it that photos. So we looked at photos, we looked at songs, and now why not a couple of ideas with realia? Again, we teachers have always brought, the real thing sometimes into the classroom, but how can we go the extra mile? These are a couple of activities that will never fail. Remember the object. You can place, like some fruit, as you've got the examples over there, and students' name. This is great for vocabulary. And then you get everybody to cover their eyes, and then they have to remember the order, of the object. Then, of course, you can also remove or change the order so that they discover, and they will be practicing vocabulary and having lots of motivation as they play. A guessing game, like bringing a strange object and getting the students to find out, what that might be. Why not engage students in a nature survival? Okay, and bring some objects that they can choose from. And what would you be taking with you if you had to survive all by yourself in an island, or if you were in the middle of the jungle, so students can make their choice and justify their choice. And another favorite of mine, which is usually associated to very young learners, but I played it with older kids and it works every time, is the Philly bags or boxes. The idea is to have a Philly box or bag where you place an object, obviously related to what you are learning, and students have to put their hand in, touch it and try to guess what it is. Push this step further by getting the students to describe what it feels like, if it is big, if it is small, if it is soft, and you will get plenty of language practice. And other favorites, I brought some favorites like the mystery box. I love having a mystery box in the classroom, and students take it in turns to bring something that is very relevant to them and put it in the box. It's only them who know. And all throughout the class, the student who has put something into the mystery box has to give clues for the partners to try to guess what's in the mystery box. But a favorite of mine is when students can prepare all about me boxes. This is the typical all about me activity where students talk about themselves, but this is done through putting things into a box that mean a lot to them. It could be a toy, it could be a photo or a medal or a picture they created themselves. And of course, they can exchange with partners, they can show to the class, and the objects that they bring trigger off talking about them. And why not miming activities? I love showing students, the name of an object that might be present in the classroom. Students mime a situation, and when students guess it, they have to go and get the real object and give it to the one that is miming. So as you can see, everything is good, bringing toys and boxes and balls, and provided there is language being used. And one of my favorite as well is bringing something that students are clueless about. They've never seen it before, and so they are going to be engaged into deep observation. And we can ask them thought-provoking questions such as, who used it? List the reasons you think so. What was it used for? List the reasons you think so. What does this tell you about the people who made it or used it? Or what does it tell you about technology at the time it was made? All right. So you will be more than blown away by students' creative thinking when it comes to providing possible uses for the objects they've never seen before. So it's a very nice activity to carry out. And last but not least, and with this, we are moving on to the Q&A, so be alert with your questions and comments. Who doesn't love storybooks? And once again, working with storybooks is not a newsflash. We teachers have always used stories, but I've got the feeling that sometimes we just read aloud to our students and then we ask a couple of comprehension questions. How can we truly create motivating experiences by using storybooks? Something that I find students very motivated by is being engaged as readers or listeners of a story. So I always like to take my students through a cover walk and preview and get them to read the title, take a cover walk, look at the back cover as well, and then they have to tell me 3 things they learned just by looking at the cover and the front and back cover, and the prediction that they are making. Making a prediction, apart from being a mandatory reading strategy, is very motivating in the sense that students can use the evidence they've got, like the title or what's in the front cover, and then they can make a prediction. And then the motivation is to want to know whether that prediction actually happens or not. Another very good idea is to have a poster in the classroom and get everybody to share their predictions, all right? The predictions they are making, and of course, notice there how the language of students is being scaffolded with a sentence frame. I think will happen because. And last but not least, people, move beyond the typical literal comprehension questions and push students into being creative readers. I love engaging children into reading response activities, such as writing a letter to the main character of the story, or creating a sequel to the story. Or why not? I didn't like the story, so I'm going to write a letter to the author of the story saying why, creating a play, or creating a new book cover. Or why not asking questions such as, why did you choose this book if it is extensive reading? Or if you could ask your main character one question, what would it be? What character, I love this one, what character in your story would you like to invite over to your house and what would you do? All right. So this is definitely more motivating for students than simply engaging in comprehension questions. Don't get me wrong, again, I'm not saying don't go for the typical, go the extra mile. And just to conclude, I found it hilarious. There is one teacher looking at another teacher and says, isn't it great? I found little classroom mode switches behind their ears. Oh, just imagine, our students do not have, classroom mode switches. They don't have motivation switches. What switches them on is what we bring into the classroom. So I hope that this webinar has left you with a couple of ideas to think about, and as I said before, to adopt and adapt to your own context. So this is the moment of the Q&A. This is my personal email in case you want to remain in contact, which is something that I love doing, remaining in contact with teachers. So I hope we do. And at this very moment, I am more than ready for any questions or comments about everything we have discussed today.
Thank you, Lou. We have lots of good comments, incredible comments in the chat while you were talking. So, so if you want to have a look, you'll find many, many interesting comments
that
from
makes
them.
me very happy. Thank you all. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat. Let's see. Okay. Oh, just hold on. Let's see. Thank you so much for these lovely comments. This goes so fast that I can hardly read. You tell me, Karina, you can help me if there is any question that I have left behind. Thank
no
you
questions.
for sharing. Great ideas.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was fruitful. Thanks a lot for this webinar. I will be more than happy to share all this with you. Okay. Motivating our students I can't wait to put those tips into action, says Andre. I love it, all the content. We are going to be more than happy to share this with you, and I hope it works. I'm pretty sure it will. I'm pretty sure these ideas will help. Our students love being engaged, and it's up to us, dear colleagues. It's up to us and the ideas that we bring into the classroom. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for such lovely comments.
Okay, we'll give you a couple of minutes if you have any extra questions for Luciana. In the meantime, I want to invite you to become one of our ambassadors. So here you can see a series of benefits. We offer educators who are willing to share practices and great ideas about what they do in their classes. So if you want, you just can scan this QR code here and send us your details so we can share more information about it, okay? Oh, I cannot see the chat at the moment, Lou. I'm not sure if there is any question for you.
No, I'm just reading the comments. I was reading a comment by Natalia, like saying the answers in many of the activities will vary depending on the student's background. Well, that is what is really motivating, that they've got a say, and that the background that they bring, their background knowledge, their ideas, their experience, everything has room in the classroom. So no more classrooms with one answer to the question, This is how they feel they are part of your class, and there is nothing more motivating than that. So Natalia, thank you for that comment. There are also connections to exams, Karina,
Yes, they mentioned as well the Cambridge.
You may have noticed that on purpose I did include some pictures from exams, because when we are preparing students for exams, sometimes we fall into just describing the picture, or we use the picture for the listening activity, and that might not be very motivating. There's always so much more than we can do. Lovely. Well, every comment melts my heart. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you, Luciana, for sharing all those incredible ideas with us.
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess we are nearly the time. So I just share a couple of just final remarks before we finish today. So the first of all is that I would like to invite you to our next webinar that will take place at the end of June. It will be on how motivation works in education for teens and adults. So it will be connected with the idea of motivating, but for your older students. It will be delivered by Paulo Dantas, our pedagogy director. So next week we will start with this registration. So in case you're interested, just be there, look out for information. And this is just the final remarks for me. Well, you already have the invitation for our next webinar. Some people ask about the certificates. Yes, we will be sending certificates by email next week to everybody who attended today. We'll also be sending a recording of the presentation in case you couldn't attend to all of it. And as a final remark, well, you're invited to join our ambassadors program. So you just need to scan this code, as I said before, and we shall send you more information about that. So, well, Luciana, I would really like to thank you for being here today. It was a pleasure to listen to you. And we'd like to thank everybody who joined us and for your time and participation.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you, everybody who loves languages. Thank you all, and have the best day, all of you. Thank you very much.